Dramos, welcome to the It's Not That Deep podcast, brother. Thanks to have you on here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you asking me on here.
It's awesome to have you here, man. For those who don't know, you're a producer on one of the most popular radio shows, in the world, The Breakfast Club, with Charlamagne, DJ Envy, Angela Yee. And it doesn't stop there, man. You're a radio personality in, if correct me if I'm wrong, but in New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, including Z100. You're a club DJ, a music producer, a podcast host. Man, you keep busy.
Yeah, I kind of bounce around a little bit.
So that's something that speaks to kind of the times and the kind of times that we live in. Like, you almost got to be multifaceted. You almost got to have a bunch of different things going on that are keeping you busy and keeping you active, man. So for the people who don't know you, they definitely have seen you before. You're the dude on the Breakfast Club with the big ass beard who doesn't say a word.
Right.
But you're managing. Exactly. You're the guy though who's making sure that everything's going right, everything's smooth, and talk to us a little bit about what your actual role is, because I know that you're not just sitting there looking
right. Yeah, I mean, so I'm one of the producers and then also the national board operator. So Breakfast Club is not only in New York, we record it in New York, but it's also syndicated across the United States, and also in Toronto now. So about 90 markets total for the Breakfast Club. So I control everything from the mics to the music to the sound effects to everything that's happening, all the segments, and basically I'm controlling every single station, all 90 stations at one time, basically. So if I mess up, it messes up the entire country and now Toronto as well.
Man, that's a lot of pressure to have on you, but you keep a stone cold face the whole time. You are laser focused, man. I love that. I love seeing it.
Yeah, you gotta be.
And but it has to be a very unique position for you to be in, because not many people, let alone can make a career in the radio space and music and everything that you're doing. But you've kind of figured out how to be on one of the best and one of the most prominent ones. Talk to us about like that journey a little bit, man, because you didn't just wake up one day on the Breakfast Club.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I can remember in like 2011 listening to the Breakfast Club from my car on the way to work every day, So it's definitely like a wild ride. I mean, yeah, I've been pursuing a career in the music industry for over 10 years, I played in bands and, we would tour around the country. Once that ended, I picked up DJing, and through that, I just started exploring different things and meeting different people. That sort of started leading into me meeting radio people, and those relationships over a couple of years kind of blossomed into some opportunities. And a couple years later, that would lead into another opportunity. And eventually, I think it was probably maybe 3 of working at iHeartRadio that I got the opportunity to work at the Breakfast Club. So it's kind of just been like a really steady, like a very slow but steady kind of uphill climb to even get in that seat.
So that consistency, that constant, drive to just be kind of doing more and show up day after day, and like these are early shows, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What are some of the things you do to keep your like schedule grounded when you got all these different things going on and keeping you so busy?
I mean, I think it's trying to stay consistent with doing things for yourself as well. I mean, obviously it's hard to stay on a consistent schedule when you're doing a million and one different things. But even for me, trying to just stick to a morning routine, I have to be at the radio station at 5, so I do my best to 5 a.m. I do my best to get up at 3 a.m. And really, there's no real reason like I have to. I live 10 minutes from the radio station, but I try and wake up at 3 a.m. so I can, get my meditation in, drink coffee, listen to like a positive podcast or like an audio book, and just kind of like, mess around with some things maybe I've had ideas for, whatever it may be. But just so I can kind of set the tone for my day, I'll maybe write out my to-do list or something like that. And I know that on the days that I am able to stick to that routine, it makes the rest of my day kind of go smoother. It puts me in a good headspace, so I try to stick to that as much as possible.
Bro, that is so powerful what you just said right there, because, you know, we always like to, you know, talk about people's morning routines and stuff like
Right.
that. But let's be honest, man. For the most part, a lot of people, if they got something to do at 7 a.m., they're gonna be up
Hmm.
at 6:30. They're gonna be
Right.
up as late as they possibly can to squeeze that last ounce of sleep, you know, that last 5 minutes
Yeah.
in bed when you're up, but you're not really up.
Right.
Most people operate, you know, living like that so that, you know, they can kind of maximize their day. But one of the biggest things that I've learned on my journey is really respecting that morning routine. Really, like,
Hmm.
that's what sets the tone for your day. So waking
Yeah.
up a couple hours before you even have to wake up, that has been
Right.
one of my like big unlocks. And you
Hmm.
talk about meditation first thing in the morning, man. I want to kind of talk
Hmm.
about that a little bit, because
Yeah.
that's another thing that has been pivotal in my growth. Talk to me about that journey. When did you decide that, you know what, I need to I need to be off before I can be on?
I mean, I think I've gone back and forth with it for probably the last maybe 4 years or something like that. I didn't really start taking it seriously probably until the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years maybe. Um, and I think for me at first it was to try to ease some anxiety. You know what I mean? To ease any of those things, and then also just to tap into myself a little bit. I think when you're chasing something, when you're moving at such a fast rate all the time, and have big goals and big dreams, a lot of times things can get cloudy in your brain, you know. And I started realizing that meditation allowed me to slow down a little bit, allowed me to sort of just center myself, and really see what was on my mind and what I wanted. Um, and and then I just started realizing how great it was for starting my day. You know, how it put me in a good, relaxed place to start my day. And then I even started going locally here. I live in Jersey City, New Jersey. There's a like a yoga studio that does meditation classes once a week. So prior to this whole COVID thing, I would go there, and just kind of like get a little bit of a lesson on just like the whole culture of meditation as well, and then participating in a group thing, and that was almost like to a degree church for me as well. I would leave there feeling lighter, and so I've recognized the positive effects of meditation, and just where it puts you in a great mental space.
That's it right there, man. Just finding it kind of like the best way that it would works for you. And I get you
Hmm.
with the on and off thing, man. I'm not as consistent as I want to be with it. I miss
Yeah.
it some days. On the weekend, you know, you
Yeah.
fuck off sometimes. You're like, oh
Yeah.
man, yeah, I'll do it. I'll start again on Monday. But like
Right.
it's always a grounding exercise, and I think it's powerful. I still feel like I haven't even really figured it out. I feel like I'm just,
Hmm.
I mean, I use an app, like,
Yeah.
and for me, that's something that, you know, it helps me kind of get better at it, and then it kind
Hmm.
of leaks into the mindfulness throughout the day. But you know,
Yeah.
you talk about waking up at 3 a.m., bro. Like, how do you maintain a career being a DJ
Hmm.
and doing these kinds of, you know, probably
Yeah.
things that take you later into the night, and
Yeah.
wake up at 3 a.m.? How do you deal with that?
I mean, I guess it starts with loving what you do, right? I think when you love it, you can kind of look past some of the things that suck about it, as far as waking up early or things like that. But I'm not gonna lie, it's tough. I go through moments of burnout, and different patterns like that. I'm only human. Um, but I think you just kind of push yourself. It's a mentality. You know what I mean? It's kind of knowing when you're tired, you gotta hit that extra gear. And then when you have the opportunity, knowing when to slow down and stop. And knowing I'm not going to bed late at night every night and getting a couple hours sleep. When I can, I try and go to bed super early. So it's just taking advantage of those things when you can.
So what's that, like a 8 p.m., like on a, if you
Uh,
can?
Yeah, if I wish, man, I'd probably say like 9 p.m. would be the earliest I've been able to get to bed. On those perfect days. But yeah, I mean, just as much as you can. You know what I mean? Try to where you can fit it in, because it is important. I don't subscribe to like the I'll sleep when I'm dead mentality. I think that won't doesn't lead to a healthy mind. It doesn't lead to productive work. Obviously there are times where you have to hit it hard and you can't get that extra sleep, but when you have the opportunity to do so, I have no problem taking a long nap in the middle of the day if I can, or going to bed super early to kind of catch up on rest.
Man, I battle with this myself so much because,
Yeah.
you know, as somebody who is trying to do a lot of things myself, you know,
Hmm.
like I work a 9 to 5, I'm trying to grow business and the podcast and
Right.
courses and learning and trying to do all these different things, you know, on top of life, just normal
Yeah.
life responsibilities. Like, you know, you still got to do the dishes, your laundry, and all the
Right.
all the bullshit, right? it,
Yeah.
it can sleep is probably one of the easier things to just be like, yeah, man, I'm just not gonna get enough of this like today because I got something else I gotta do. But
Right.
that's I completely agree that we should not be glorifying like a 3 hour a night sleep schedule, because all these
Yeah.
studies show how important it is to operate at our peak. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's really important that you said that, because I'll sleep when I'm dead. And that's almost the same mentality of some of these people who are working like 90-hour weeks and are
Hmm.
boasting about it. And we're
Yeah.
learning now that if you could do 60 and be a lot more productive, you
Yeah.
know why would you not opt for that and actually live a bit of your life?
No, absolutely. I think even this whole coronavirus experience is exposing a lot of that stuff. That a lot of jobs are realizing that they don't even need to be in the office as many hours as they are to get work done. Or that I think we also tend to procrastinate a lot. You know what I mean? Like if we were really honest about it, like if we were to hit things really hard, it wouldn't take us as long to do so, and we can get more sleep, get more rest, get more life in. I really think that's what it is. That's why I haven't say was saying setting intention in the morning is so important, because at least I have a game plan, you know what I mean? And I can easily knock those things out. And then I'm realistic. I know, okay, this stuff needs to get done today, and this doesn't necessarily need to get done today and get done tomorrow. You know what I mean? And with that, you kind of allow yourself to have a little bit of leeway so you can try living as healthy of a life as possible.
Yeah, and it comes down to avoiding that burnout and having,
Hmm.
like a to-do list is one thing, but a to-do list that kind of, has the priorities built in, and
Yeah.
like, what's important versus what's urgent. These
Hmm.
are things that, it's an exercise I do every morning as well, because it's like you can honestly take up a whole entire day doing things that make you feel like you're getting a lot of stuff done, but
Right.
it's all busy work. It's like
Yeah.
administrative stuff, or like I got to do this, I got to do that, like all these different things, but it's not
Hmm.
actually productive. There's a big difference
Right.
between being busy and being productive. So,
Hmm.
that's something that I feel like it's not talked about enough. Like, you could be at an office job, you know, working 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day,
Hmm.
whatever. how
Right.
how are you really like even working half of that, like
No.
actual work? Not at all.
Hmm.
You're at the water cooler, you're
Hmm.
talking, you're at someone's, it applies
Yeah.
to everything. So, I definitely do think that, you know as we move towards, more remote work,
Hmm.
more flexible work kind of options, I think the world's changing, man. I think we're watching it, like, forcefully be changed right now in front of our eyes.
Hmm.
And this pandemic has exposed a lot of that. Now, I don't know how much, is going to stick around as soon as it's done, or cleared up. Like, I don't
Right.
know. You're seeing a lot of companies, especially in the tech space,
Hmm.
announcing now that, hey, we're going fully remote,
Hmm.
which is an interesting change, but that people are celebrating a lot. But you don't realize that now you're competing with, a billion other people for the same job. So
Right. Yeah.
there's always two sides to every story. So I think it's
No,
very
absolutely.
interesting where we're heading, man. How have you been keeping up during this whole pandemic?
I mean, it's been interesting. It's definitely, obviously I'm not DJing right now, so that's been interesting to have my weekends now to myself. I was working remotely for a few weeks, and then now I've just started going back into the radio station. The Charlamagne and Envy and all of them are still working from home. They're broadcasting from their house. I'm running the boards from the actual studio. So I mean, I think I've gotten to have the best of both worlds to a degree. I'm still having that routine of getting up and going to the studio, which is nice. And then I'm still now at home. I have a little bit more time to work on other projects I've been wanting to pursue, and just kind of have more creative ideas. I mean, to be honest, I feel like I'm busier now than I was prior to the whole quarantine. So it is kind of crazy.
Yeah, man, I could not relate more to that. Like,
Yeah.
it's been a time right now where some people have gotten to slow down and kind of like realize what some of the things that are important to them, and I've had a bit of that. But I've just
Hmm.
been, every day has just been melting into the next. There's just
Hmm.
so much going on and so many things that,
Yeah.
it's been a transformational time in terms of, I feel this almost like, people talk about FOMO a lot. I feel
Hmm.
like almost reverse FOMO. Like right now, if I'm not putting in this work right now, at a time when everyone's home, and now's the time to be building and laying down like foundations. Bro, like, you're not going to be given an opportunity like this again. And I hate to kind of minimize, you know, the impact of the virus. I mean, it's definitely has an impact on a lot of people's lives, and I don't want to be completely insensitive about that, but you know, if you are able to, you know, kind of pull yourself up, and even if it's reading a book, even if it's taking that course you always wanted to take, even if it's like, you know, like you said, creative projects, things that I've always wanted to start a podcast, I've always wanted to do this, I've always wanted, start your book, start this, start it now's like best time to do it, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you have people's attention more now. You know what I mean? Everybody's kind of slowed down. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to make light of the terrible situation that it is that brought us all here. But at the same time, there are parts of it that are a blessing. You know, if you are able to stay healthy and your family's healthy, there are parts of it that are a blessing that, you know, you have the time to experiment. And now is the time to experiment because the world is going crazy. So you failing right now, you know, is not as big of a deal because we're seeing the world fail at a grand level. You know what I mean? So your failure is so minute in the scale, but also now is the time to experiment. You have people's attention. You have the ability to see, you know, what is getting a reaction, what's not, what are people, you know, really resonating with, what aren't they? And, you know, that's what I've tried to do with this. You know, I think the way I've looked at it, and I've just kind of made a competition for my own self in my own head, is there are going to be winners and losers at the end of this whole quarantine thing. And I want to be one of the people who's on the winning side of it all, you know?
That's a great way to look at it, man. And you know, I can see you even doing some things that maybe you might not have done as much of in the past, which is, you know, quarantine in the afternoon. You're doing this, you know, IG live thing all the time. I don't know how often, like 4 or 5 days a week at least, right?
Yeah, every weekday.
Yeah, so like I'm seeing that every day, and like I always want to join in, but I'm always like on a call or something. But when I do, I always see open, honest discussions, you answering questions that people have for you, and I think it's like it's really important to explore those kinds of things. You know, do those kinds of things that are gonna connect you with your fans. Do this kind of thing. Have this open dialogue. Like, you don't know me, like I'm just a random dude from Ottawa, but you know, I fuck with you. I fuck with everything that, you know, you are trying to build and do. And so I'm like, man, I gotta sit down and chat with you, bro. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think
mean, we have each other's attention right now. You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of it. And even people I've been tapping to interview and stuff like that, they might not have had the time to slow down and hop on IG Live with me, you know? And that's the beauty of it all. And I think even with doing this every day, I've always had an interest in wanting to do something like this. It also has allowed me to find my voice. You know what I mean? Like, I'm able to speak freely, and I'm actually seeing that's resonating with people. So now it's encouraged me to continue on. Okay, now how do I expand this beyond this? Because I think I've actually really found like where I fit into this, you know, this whole media industry in the grand scheme of it all.
that's I'm really happy that you figured that out, man. Finding your voice is something that my podcast has allowed me to do. And you know, I know you've had some podcasts in the past. I don't know if you still run, you've had 2 different podcasts, right?
Yeah, Beats and Booze, which is more like interview style with artists, and then I did another one called Dream Dealers, which was actually via IG Live like a year ago. So it's funny that it all kind of melded
Come-
into this.
yeah.
And then now I do one that I had just started probably, man, a month, maybe when this whole Corona thing just hit. I had just started another podcast called First Generation Talks.
First Generation Talks, man. That's hype.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
where can people like find out about that a little bit more?
That one's available everywhere you find podcasts, and if it's on IG, if it's at First Generation Talks. There's a link in my bio, but that one, that's the one I've been doing still every week now, even during the quarantine. It's with my guy Radimus, who's a hip hop artist out of New York.
That's awesome, man. Like,
Yeah.
what are some of the parallels you find between podcasting and radio? Because to me, I feel like they're distant cousins, but they're
hmm
still like they still kick it every now and then. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
any radio like spot or thing that I've been on, I feel hella awkward
yeah.
because you don't get that level of freedom. And it's
Right.
like, okay, Deepak, tell us what you know, blah, blah, blah. You have 30
Yeah.
seconds to tell us your life story, and then we're going to cut to
Right.
commercial. Talk to me
Yeah.
about, like, you know, what you think about the kind of the differences and parallels between radio and podcasts.
I mean, I love podcasts. I think it's definitely different. Like you said, I think radio is a more controlled environment, obviously. Especially, I mean, if you're doing like morning radio, like the Breakfast Club, you have a little bit more time to let loose to talk about things in a little bit more of a long form. But even still, podcasting obviously is just open, no rules whatsoever. So I think there is that there's the freedom to talk about whatever you want to talk about. I think with podcasting, you can really dive into more of a niche, dive more into your interests. Whereas radio, you want to try to keep it a little bit more broad, But they still, like you said, that's a perfect way to say it. There are distant cousins, and I think for people who are in radio, if they truly kind of have a voice outside of just talking about entertainment and the music, for them, podcast is amazing because it's almost like they get to just let loose, and run free. And for me, that's what it's been.
1,000%, man. And then you kind of control your narrative a bit more, I guess, if that makes sense. Like you talk about finding your voice. There's no better way than to just honestly just have these open conversations. Like I don't plan what I'm gonna say to you when I sit down. I have a few bullet points, but it's not like I'm sitting here like I got a script to follow and I can't deviate from it. And that's not to shit on radio. Look, man, if there's any show that's done a great job of tiptoeing that line, it's the Breakfast Club, man. Like you guys absolutely push the boundary of what can and can't be kind of said, and you say things almost without saying them. And so that's a very that's even something that a lot of I find radio stations and radio shows don't even try, because there's such strict regulations of what can be broadcast. And
I mean, the Breakfast Club is almost even an anomaly in itself in radio. You know what I mean? If you're comparing it, that's why it is the way it is because why it has the fame and attention it does, because they do fight against the rules and tiptoe the line, like you said, and push it as far as you possibly could, as far as regulations go, and most radio stations won't give you that freedom to have a personality. The problem with most radio stations is it's brand first, personality second. You know what I mean? So everything you do and say has to sort of fit within this whole brand. And the Breakfast Club has managed to kind of like fight against that a little bit.
Well, and also like almost transcend, radio, because it's internationally watched on YouTube. Some of the clips are chopped up and are all over Instagram, all over all kinds of different social media channels. The individual hosts all have their own personalities and their own things going on. I believe Charlamagne has his own podcast and
Brilliant Idiots.
Exactly. So like everyone, and he's an interesting character, man. So talk to me a little bit about what it's been like for you, kind of being in this space, being around all these different cool people that they bring in for these interviews, and staying humble throughout it all.
I mean, I think it's just eye-opening. It's inspiring to be around it every day, to hear, what they have going on, to see the way their mind thinks firsthand. All of that stuff, it's just like, imagine, whoever the most inspiring person you ever interviewed, you get to be around them every single day now, you know what I'm saying? And like shadow them. It's crazy, and you're able to pick their brain and you're able to like shoot them a text like, hey, what do you think about this? That's like the biggest thing, and then obviously, being around some of the, people that come in, the A-list, celebrities or just people of influence that come in. I think it's cool to kind of see the human aspect of a lot of those people, and for the good and bad. Some of it's good and some of it's bad, but it's just, it's just very inspirational. Then especially if you're sitting across from somebody you grew up watching, it's just kind of like, damn, like I got here, you know what I mean? And it kind of shows you can keep pushing on with whatever you're dreaming to do.
Well, no matter what, like, people have accomplished, their celebrity, A-list, all these different things, right? At the end of the day, they are just human beings. And
absolutely,
I can't speak for you, but from my experience in podcasting and having like people on who, nowhere near Breakfast Club level, guests, but from people just having these chats with them. And like before, I might have even put this person on a pedestal, like, oh my God, this person's done so many things, built multi-million business, killing it, this and that, like all these magazine. Then you talk to them and it's just a human being, man. They got their own set of problems. They all fundamentally want kind of the same things. health, wealth, happiness, lack of suffering. You know, like what, like we all, like when you boil it down, we all kind of
Mhm.
want some of the same similar things, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting perspective, that, like, you know, you placing yourself and being able to, you know, be across the table from these people it's fucking cool. Like, no one's gonna take that away from you. It's
Yeah,
fucking
of
cool.
course.
But then you go home, it's like, damn, bro, I met Drake today. I met Soulja Boy. I
Yeah.
met J Lo. I met, like, you know, like
Yeah.
all these different people, man. It's like, what are some interviews that have stood out for you? Like,
I mean, 50 Cent, whenever he comes through, because you can just see like the way his mind works. Like he makes eye contact with everybody in the room, even if you're not the person interviewing him. He'll make eye contact with the intern in the corner. So he's making sure everybody is a part of the conversation as he's talking. So like that, I've taken that away. Where it's like if I'm in a room, make sure everybody is engaged. You know what I mean? If I'm the one speaking, you know, even if they're not the one that is like asking the questions or answering questions,
damn,
whatever the case may be. And so then now it's like you have to pay attention to what he's saying. He's making sure you're all engaged and you're a part of the conversation. um, and then I mean, everybody's human except for Will Smith. I think, to be honest with you, like Will Smith, uh, he like when you think of a celebrity where you're like, man, it just like you feel it when they walk in the room. That he's that. You know what I mean? But he does it in a way of like being just a real person. Like Martin Lawrence was a little bit late, so Will got there first, and Will wanted to wait for Martin Lawrence to come in. So Will's waiting in like our kind of lobby area, and you know, there's obviously a lot of people coming in there because they want to get a glimpse of Will Smith. And he's literally just in there like having conversations, laughing, joking with people, and like just entertaining the room. You know what I mean? Like he literally lit up the room. You hear that about some people where it's like when they walk a room, you just feel like they light up a room. Like he genuinely was like that, but it was because he was just interacting with people as if he wasn't Will Smith. He was laughing,
mm.
engaged, you know. And so to me, I take that away. Like, man, like that's how you know, you make people feel a part of what's going on. You know, you're not too big to allow them to be a part of the conversation. That's how you really affect people and impact people.
Right, because we've always we've all experienced the flip side of that, and you meet
Hmm.
somebody who, you know, you you regard highly,
Hmm.
and you know, you might have some kind of interaction with them, and they're just total asshole, and you're just like,
Absolutely.
man, like, what the hell? How? Like, this person has everything, this
Right.
person has it all, everything on
Hmm.
paper. How could you be a dick? And
Yeah.
so Will Smith had his ability to, you know, and I haven't met him, so I can't really speak as if I have, but every interview I've watched, every single like thing that Will Smith has put out, he
Hmm.
exudes that energy. It's like
Yeah.
it very much is energy, and it's
Hmm.
it's bringing everybody up with you. I like how you said that, man. Like, you know, no matter who, you're never too big. Like you're gonna
Hmm.
talk to the intern the same way you're gonna talk to, you
Right.
know, the host of the show or anything, man.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
That is how it should be, man. But I think, you know, egos and our heads get so big, you know,
Hmm.
when we accept that. And
Yeah.
I think anybody can become victim to that. But you know, it's a conscious decision to be like that. He has to, because it could be so easy for him to get caught. Imagine being Will Smith and trying to go
Yeah.
anywhere. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like the
Yeah.
cameras,
Oh
the
yeah.
media, everything, like people just trying to, you know, and I've heard like a lot of stories about Michael Jordan being like the flip side of that. Like
Right. Yeah, I've heard that too.
he'll stiff arm you in the face, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'll go like, shout at
Right.
you. Like, I've heard those kinds of stories, and then, you
Yeah.
know, I don't know if you've seen that documentary,
Oh
the
yeah.
yeah. So I watched The Last Dance, and man, I get it. Like, this
Yeah.
dude is just operating on a whole different level of competition. Like,
Right.
everything's a competition. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, and I mean, but you even saw that like he cried when he was talking about when people were talking about how they felt about him. You know what I mean? Where he cried, what feeling like people didn't actually like him. You know, and it's an interesting kind of thing because you know he chose to be this ultimate ice cold, you know, sort of person, and obviously was very successful with it. But what the flip side is, he's still hurt that he never had that human interaction. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't want to think of himself as being hated or anything like that, you know. So it's definitely an interesting kind of dichotomy when it comes to all that stuff.
Exactly, man. I wouldn't want to be him, and that's probably
Yeah.
one of the biggest takeaways from the doc for me, is like he put so much on the line above everybody else. Even, you know, the players on his team who were world class in their own respect. He had to bring them up to his level, and that's taxing work, man. So that's like, I blew my mind watching that documentary, because I knew a lot of those things, but I never like got to see footage. I never got to actually like understand it. I like kind of switching gears a little bit, man, because I know we could just like sit and talk shit here for hours about all different topics, but switching gears a little bit, man. You like, in addition to all the other things you do, you're super into like vintage clothing, and talk to me about like where that passion came about, and when you started exploring that.
I mean, I think I've always been into it. My mom was super big into like antiquing when I was a kid. So like I was always at secondhand shops, and she was like repurposing furniture in our house and like reupholstering old things and making it cool. So I think that rubbed off on me. And then I think I've just always been into fashion and clothing. And I think it got to a point where I was like, I just wanted to have something different than everybody else. You know what I mean? I wanted to just dress differently. And then when I was kind of getting, I guess, into the age where I was going out, it was like places like H&M were big, so it was like everybody was wearing the same things all the time. And I just wanted something different. So there was like I remember a thrift store opened up around my house when I used to live with my parents, and I would just go there all the time and like repurpose stuff, and that started the love for it. And I think a lot of it also is like there's just stories behind it. You know what I mean? Like some of it might remind me of my childhood, and it's like childhood nostalgia, a certain shirt, or it just brings me back to a certain time period. I think there's a lot of cool things about that. And I think even when you're out with people, it's like almost like you're wearing art. You know what I mean? It's like a conversation starter when somebody comments on your shirt and you have a discussion about that. Like, yo, I remember watching that movie as a kid. If it's like a shirt about a movie or something like that, or whatever it is. I think it's an ability to showcase some of your personality without actually having to say it.
Right, man. It's one of the purest ways to express yourself without saying a word. It's
Right.
very, very interesting, man. I've never thought of myself as someone who is extremely fashionable, but I've always wanted to. I'm just waiting till I get the bag first.
Right. I mean, it's also like I've gotten recently into like looking at it from a sustainable point of view, where it's like the world is a lot better if we start reusing things. You know what I mean? And like if you keep producing clothing and things like that, it's just not good for the environment. So like the ability to reuse things, and it also makes you look cool. That's like a win-win situation when it comes to that.
1000%, man. Yeah, my mom's always like tried to instill those thrift shop values into me. Like, what's wrong with it that you're paying, $3 for this thing, or you could pay 300 for it at the store? Where's the sense in that? It's like, oh, but mom, it's off white. Like
right.
So,
Not sure. I mean, it's also the hunt. You go in there, you're like, you don't really know what you're looking for, and you just start finding cool things, cool gems. You know what I mean? It's just I travel around the country going to different thrift shops and stuff like that. So like to me, it's always fun to kind of do that, and just there's a whole culture behind it. It's like music. There's a culture. There's like a scene within everything, and you can kind of meet different people throughout it as well, which is dope.
I love that, man. Where could people like find some of these clothes and some of like the line, or like some of the stuff you might be selling?
So I haven't been as good at updating it, but I do update it every once in a while, like every few weeks maybe. Called Cult Classics. It's Cult with a V, so CVLT Classics. That's the Instagram, or cultclassics.com with the V. And I'll sell stuff on there. Sometimes I'll like clean out my closet and just sell a bunch of stuff that I've worn, to kind of clear some space. Or when I go traveling, I'll pick up stuff with the intention of kind of reselling. It's just like another hustle, another passion of mine to kind of be able to do.
Switching gears again a little bit, as somebody who, like me, I'm very much an extremely lazy person when it comes to music. I'm the guy who I'll hear a fire track, and that's the track. Like that, I'm gonna be bumping that for a minute. That like I love this kind of I like certain kinds of music, and I like certain kinds of sounds, and I'm very open. I like a lot of different types of music. How do you, like, as somebody who's so entrenched in music production, DJ, all these different kinds of things, how do you identify what's good music to you?
It's tough. I mean, I think there's categories. So as a DJ, I know there are certain records that will work well in the club. You know what I mean? And it's just like an energy wise thing, whether it's a crowd participation type of thing. There's those kinds of records. And then for me, I mean, I listen to every kind of music. So like, it really just depends on the mood I'm in. There are certain things I'll put on if it's like chill indie type of stuff, like if I'm just trying to work and have something to put me in a cool zone. And then if I'm trying to get hyped, I mean, recently I've listened to a lot of like dance music just because we've been in such a solemn place as like a world with this whole thing that it's been a good pick me up. You know what I mean? And some days it's hip hop. It really just depends. I think what it just makes you feel something, whether it makes you feel hype, whether it makes you feel emotional, whether it makes you feel whatever the case may be. I think whatever attachment you can kind of get to it, I think that's how you kind of know something is good because it makes you feel a certain type of way.
So what would be like your top EDM and hip hop artist right now in your
Mm.
rotation?
I mean, I love Lil Baby and the Baby. I would say those are the two big ones. And St. John is another one.
Hmm.
Who I absolutely love. Like his album is fired me, one of the most underrated ones,
Yeah.
probably the last year. And then I mean, EDM wise, man, it kind of goes back and forth. Like Diplo is one of my favorite artists and producers, so like I mess with what he does pretty heavily. So I'm always kind of have stuff like that in rotation. And it just depends. Like right now, there's just a lot of like random artists in the EDM space. It's not really being dominated by like one giant artist as maybe it was a few years ago.
Right.
So it's kind of like whatever ends up popping up within that space, and I kind of go with the flow. With EDM, I'm a little less particular. It's more just like I'll just like throw on a playlist on Spotify or like I'll throw on Sirius XM and just kind of let it rock.
Yeah, that's kind of like how I go about it with the Spotify. Because with dance music, like I mean, I feel like it's got to be so um like you gotta actually really be a fan to just seek out one artist and
Hmm.
listen to that artist only.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like it's almost a melting pot, and that's I mean, I think rave culture and festival culture has a big part to play in that. Like, you go watch a set of 3, 4 different DJs do their thing,
Hmm.
and it's like this energy that they're exuding. It's wild,
Right.
man. That's
Yeah, I
like
mean, I think in EDM, it's less about artist recognition and more about the vibe of the song and what the song sounds like. Like the point of entry in EDM is a lot lower than it is in any other genre. So like it doesn't people don't really care as much about who made the track as much as what it sounds like and what it feels like in the club or whatever the case may be.
what do you think is going to be like the next big sound to kind of dominate, like how kind of Pop Smoke, popularized drill over here?
Hmm.
Like, what's something that you see is up and coming and is a trend that people aren't really too up and up on right now?
I mean, I think in general, coming out of this whole thing of life right now that we're in, it was COVID, now it's, the riots and the looting and all that stuff. People are going to want upbeat music. So I think EDM is going to have another boom like it did, a few years ago, just because that's just upbeat, high energy. When people go out, they're just going to want to feel good when they are able to go out again. Um, so I think you're gonna see that trend start to happen again, and then I think even just the direction that somebody like the Baby's going in right now with a track like Rockstar, where it's a little bit more melodic, and I think hip hop is gonna start leaning towards that because again, it's gonna be more of just making people feel good, giving them something they can dance to, sing along to, because we've all gone through like this traumatic experience for the majority of this year, and I
Yeah.
think music a lot of times reflects that. So coming out of it, people are just gonna want stuff that makes them feel good and maybe we don't have to overthink so much right now.
Uh, that like I completely agree with everything that you just said. When I put that kind of music on, it's for a reason. Even if I don't
Hmm.
consciously like think about that, like you put that stuff on, you throw some like chami or something, and it
Hmm.
just like
Yeah.
it just gets you moving, gets you like
Hmm.
it's different kind of energy. So, yeah, I agree with you, man. I think that's something that is gonna kind of pick back up as
Yeah.
hopefully this stuff clears up, man.
Hmm.
And so for this was a question that I asked my friend, and he told me, he's like, he wanted to know, for up and coming artists,
Hmm.
kind of what's the best way to create a fan base and to
Mm.
think more long term than short term, like clout and success, like
Right.
some of the artists out there are doing right now.
I mean, I always love the approach that Russ has had.
Mm.
Um, he was consistent. I think it's like a track a week for 2 years or something like that. Now I'm
And
not
doing it
saying that.
all.
Right, mix, mastering, rapping, everything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to have that level of like psychoticness, I guess, of like being that, but it is that because I think, you know, when he did pop, he had this entire back catalog for people to check out. You know what I mean? So I think it is that kind of thing, a consistent catalog you're going to want to have. Um, and as well as like, I think the veil has been lifted. Like people don't want to feel like their artist is above them. They want to feel like their artist is meeting them at the same point, you know? So when it comes to your social media, when it comes to other things, like interact with people, connect with people outside of the music, you know, don't just be
Mhm.
selling them things. Like figure out ways to speak on things that they care about, you know, and build a personal relationship with them. That's really like the long term kind of success. And it's not about riding a wave of a particular sound, like you were saying about pop. So everybody sounds like that now, you know. And you have to be ahead of the curve. Like somebody I was interviewing, 4B, was saying this and he put it perfectly. Like once something already is popping or like that wave is happening,
It's
it's
too
over
late.
already. Like
It's too late.
yeah, your chance to get on it is gone. You know, so you have to kind of figure out what the next thing is going to
Create the
be.
wave.
Right, exactly. So it's like, all right, I see this is popping right now. What do I think, if I can predict it, is going to be the next thing that people latch onto, you know, from that?
So it's that the music industry is so weird to me because it's like
Hmm.
it's so much more than just the product. The
Hmm.
business side of it, is so intertwined with, like you
Hmm.
said, the social media, with, the engagement, with giving the
Hmm.
fans something more than just, you can be the illest lyricist. You could have the
Yeah,
most fire beats. It's this perfect storm that has to happen for you to achieve any success in this,
yeah.
quite frankly, ultra saturated space.
It is. And I mean, I think collaboration is another big thing. You know, Instagram is your best friend. You can find producers, other rappers, singers, whatever genre you deal with, collaborate with them, connect with them, because now you have their following pushing you. You know what I mean? Like coming to your page now, and vice versa. I think a lot of times we get caught up in like wanting to get immediate numbers, wanting to get you know, the biggest name we possibly can on a song. And a lot of times, man, you just got to go about it just collaborating with people, because you don't know who's going to be the next one to pop. And now if they pop and you have a good relationship with them, they're going to lift you up, you know, hopefully. So it's all about that. It's collaboration in every aspect, you know.
I kind of got a question for you that's like kind of personal to me, because
Mhm.
I've gotten to travel a little bit to Europe before, and I fell in love with the UK grime sound.
Mhm.
And I've always wondered why it's not more popular, here in America and Canada. You
Mhm.
see the gap being bridged by artists like Drake, collaborating
Mhm.
with Skepta and Gigs and that kind of thing. Why do you think like America never really took to that sound?
I mean, I mess with it too. I think it's probably a part of the accent a little bit, you know. And I think there's probably this misconception by Americans, especially, you know, and you know, however you want to see it. A lot of times, America sets the tone for the rest of the world when it comes to music, at least historically. I think a lot of people probably don't take them seriously as like street people. You know what I mean? Like, even though that, because that, I think a lot of that is the accent. People don't think that the UK has like this sort of, you know, urban environment or a grimy environment, you know what I mean, like a street environment. So I think they might not take it particularly seriously when it comes to that. I like it a lot, but yeah, I think it's a combination of those things probably.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I do think that like when someone's saying like some extremely gangster shit, but
Hmm.
in an absolute proper like accent,
Right,
sounding using words that Americans would straight up just not use, like serendipitously,
right.
like what,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
No,
you use that,
absolutely.
like people put you in a box. I think that's very interesting. I do think
Yeah,
that gap is going to close more and more.
yeah.
But that's honestly biased because I like that sound a lot.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, usually when Drake hops on something, the gap starts to close a little bit, you know. But
the
yeah, I mean,
Drake
I think
effect.
even yeah, but I mean, if you look at pop music, UK singers who make pop music, you don't really hear their accent, right? When they're singing, you don't really notice it. You know, it's only when you get like Adele or a Sam Smith or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that is a big difference. Is that when it comes to the grime stuff, their accent is out there, you know, 100%. So that's maybe part of the reason why it hasn't happened for them.
Right, man. And I asked that question, and even as like I'm having you're answering it, I'm thinking about it, and it's like it's almost the same reason why I don't like French rap as much, or
Mm,
or German rap. And it comes down to the language and the tone. I find French
Right.
rap quite aggressive, like a little
Mhm.
too aggressive. Like even
Mhm.
like it just doesn't sound like attractive to the ears. I'm like, man, this dude's mad
Yeah.
at something. Like
Right.
you
Right.
know what
Right.
I'm saying? Or like
Yeah.
German, it's just like I don't understand the language at all. So it's like,
Right.
but that could be a big part of it. But I just wanted to kind of tease that out and like ask you, because I've always been
Yeah.
curious about it, and I'm sure you guys have had some of those artists on the show as well.
Mhm.
Now you brought up something that I've been, yeah, we're on social media right now. We see it all going on. Before we
Mhm.
started the show, we talked about this a little bit.
Mhm.
Everything that's going on in the US right now, it's a difficult time to say the least.
Mhm.
You know, for anybody listening to this, we're recording it on June 2nd, when
Mhm.
only last week, there was a murder that was basically broadcast to the world
Mhm.
by a police officer, and that triggered a lot of what we're seeing now. And
Mhm.
this is a very complicated situation, and for somebody who's not American, who's very much live in Canada, we face our own racism in a different way.
Mhm.
Police brutality, I'm not going to say it does not exist. It
Mhm.
absolutely exists, but the spotlight is not shined on it the way it is with our neighbors down south.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your thoughts about all this, man, because I tuned into one of your Instagram lives the other day, and you're talking about a story about this guy, crying, actually just talking about, living life in America as a black man. And that
Mhm.
broke my heart, man. That
Yeah.
absolutely
Same.
floored me, bro.
Mhm.
Talk to me about like some of the emotions and some of the stuff you're dealing with right now with all this.
I mean, I think right now what's happening is a perfect storm of a lot of things. Historically, if you just look at the history of America, you're talking about almost 400 years of slavery. Then when slavery ended, you're talking about segregation after that. Then when that ended, there was all kinds of things like redlining, which made it harder for people of color to own homes, and it can only own homes in certain areas. And it's just continuous things that are systematically designed to hold down people of color, and to make life a little bit more difficult for them. uh, so within that, you have a lot of injustices that have been building up from lack of proper healthcare in certain areas that happen to have a higher population of people of color, and then as well as racism from both white supremacists throughout the country, and as well as, unfortunately, for the powers that be, law enforcement or government officials and things like that. So the idea of police brutality is not anything new. I think it's been something I've grown up with, my parents have grown up with, and all those kinds of things. Now we're living in an era of social media where everything is being filmed, everything is being distributed at a rapid pace. We're all able to really see things in real time, and I think that continues to make things boil up even more. And not to say that's a bad thing, because it's good to know what the hell's going on. So now what we're seeing, I think, is a perfect storm of years and years of a group of people feeling like they've been suppressed, they've been looked down upon and treated as less than human. And then it happening on plain sight on a video, a man being murdered by a police officer in one of the most egregious ways we've ever seen filmed on camera, broad daylight, during a time when we're facing a pandemic where the country has been locked down basically for a couple months. Frustrations have been growing over that, and you have 40 million Americans out of work, unemployed. So it's just this perfect storm of everything, and it just blew over now in this situation. It's feelings that have been there for a very long time, but now this particular case really brought it to light and really just made people kind of go over the edge. This was the tipping point, I think.
I could not have put it any better, man. Like that is it. And that's, it's it's so tough as, almost like a bystander or somebody who knows the difference between right and wrong. You
Hmm.
know, everybody knows. Even the
Hmm.
racist people, they know that that's wrong. But it's
Yeah.
like you cling so hard to this idea or this environment that you've come up and then that you've been kind of
Hmm.
conditioned to believe these certain things. And you go on Twitter right now, it's a shit show, man.
Yeah.
you can literally, or any social media for that matter, anything positive or negative or anything that's posted about this stuff, you're gonna have 10 other comments that say, oh well, all lives matter, or
Mm.
oh well, he, that, like, the common fallacy of now blaming the victim. And just like you said, this is not just an isolated incident. This just happened
Mhm.
to be recorded. It's been
Right.
going on forever. It just,
Mhm.
and but what really shocks me the most out of all of it is that even with the recording, even with the footage out there clear as day, you will still have people defending the actions of law enforcement. So
Mhm.
I don't want to sit here and pretend like I have any solutions, but you shared something earlier today, and I actually listened to it really quickly, and I'm not sure if it was Nick Cannon or someone. Uh,
Yeah, it was a page called "The Love We Don't See." He called into Nick Cannon's radio show,
okay,
and kind of gave his points.
I loved that because it was like, and I don't want to sound insensitive here, man, but I'm gonna be honest. I think we're past the point of awareness.
Mm.
I think just a hashtag, or just making your Instagram, posting a black square, like, I mean, I'm
Mhm.
doing these things as well, right? But I
Mhm.
just feel like it's not enough. And
Yeah.
even donating money to these funds, I've done that as well, and it still doesn't feel like actually doing enough. So I wrote this down because I thought the list was brilliant, and it was like 5
Mhm.
things. And if you don't mind, I'll quickly go through some of them. And
Yeah.
I thought it was like, this is actionable stuff that can be done. I don't know if it's
Mm.
right or wrong. I don't know if it's gonna work or if it's gonna solve the problem. But one of
Mhm.
them was, defund police. 54%
Mm.
of tax dollars go to the criminalization of the people. We need to invest into social programs to uplift the community. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
no-brainer, you know,
Mhm.
changing where the resources are going,
Mhm.
reallocate assets defunded from police into education. Now, this part right
Mhm.
here spoke to me, man, into things like coding and programming, financial literacy, entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
social
Mhm.
emotional learning, multicultural psychology, and then affordable housing, public health, family support, mental health.
Mhm.
These are all things that, I mean, you know, no offense, like, America needs to step up on for
I
their
agree.
people. And
Yeah.
it's not just America, it's a worldwide issue. But the fact that so much can be spent on the military and law enforcement, and
Mhm.
not these seemingly such simple things, it's like,
Mhm.
it really just makes you question, like, what's really going on here. Number 3
Yeah.
was prosecution of the officers who commit acts of the loss of life.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think that is one of the things that sparks. Everyone wants to talk about the riots and the looting right now. A lot of people
Mhm.
want to focus on that side of things.
Mhm.
Why don't we focus on actually prosecuting the people who've committed murder and
Right.
stood around to watch it?
Yeah. And as of now, those other 3 officers that stood around and watched haven't been arrested yet or charged. So as of this
Darkness.
interview, yeah.
And then retraining law enforcement with a focus on multicultural psychology. And
Mhm.
look, man, this has always been something that I've said that just makes so much sense. Look,
Mhm.
you could you look, we could talk about all these, the deep racism and all these systemic issues and stuff like that. No one's going to be able to solve that overnight. It's not a
Mhm.
reality. We're not going to be able to just flip a switch and change that. But what we
Mhm.
can do is mandate by law certain types of training that if you do not pass it, you don't get to have a badge and a gun. You just,
Mhm.
like, it just seems like such common sense. Another thing I
Yeah.
thought of was, like, why doesn't everybody have some kind of body camera, or like, and a backup camera? And you know
Mhm.
you want to talk about, like, having surveillance. Why not surveil the people who are supposed to serve and protect?
Mhm.
And the fifth one, I can't comment on this one because I don't know anything about district attorneys and stuff like that, but a new DA. And the people who actually make the legislation and the policy, they gotta
Mhm.
they gotta start paying attention and making changes to this stuff. So
Yeah. I mean, I think you have a lot of people that are too close to it. So I think the DA comment was they had actually the Attorney General of Minnesota now take over this case, particularly because the district attorney that was on it originally was just too close to the case. At that point, he knows the police, he knows, the judges, all that kind of stuff. So it's just not giving us a fair, unbiased opinion. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, what a lot of what was being said in there is we want accountability. We want officers who break the law to be treated the same way that we do. If we're arrested immediately when we do something, why is an officer can't be arrested immediately? And also, it's obvious that there needs to be somebody who polices the police, some sort of system in place that oversees it all. And I think also, like you're saying, it's the lack of proper training and consistent training. There's obviously a huge problem when it comes to a lot of these police officers and their ability to de-escalate a situation.
Yeah.
They ran into this situation with this man in Minneapolis over he had a counterfeit bill. You didn't need to run in there guns a-blazing, over a call of somebody possibly paying with a counterfeit bill. So it's obvious that there is a lack of skills when it comes to de-escalation, as well as just knowing how certain cultures move and work. And then, yeah, there's not enough funding to educate people within those communities to give them the opportunity to climb out of poverty, to put themselves in better positions. He mentioned credit and things like that, ownership. It's like, absolutely, we don't have the history of those things. You know what I mean? So we are unable to pass that information down because we weren't taught it. So people in that community being able to own homes and things like that adds to your pride. That adds to your legacy, and that makes you choose a different life a lot of times. A lot of these kids that choose a life of crime or whether it's drugs or robbing, whatever the case may be, it's because they feel like they have no other option.
Yeah. Gotta get it how you
they
live.
feel like if I can, either I can be a rapper or a basketball player, and if I can't be either one of those, then you just have to resort to whatever street thing I can do.
1000%.
That's the biggest problem. Yeah.
That's it, man. And it that's a problem here as well. And like, it really does come down to more than just education, wanting to educate and giving people the resources to be able to learn and make something out of their life,
Absolutely.
because we're not all dealt the same hand, and that's ridiculous to assume so.
Yeah.
To give people at least a fair chance, man, at least getting out of here. And there will always be criminals, man, but you watch these videos of how police interact with different races, and you talk about de-escalation, man. I mean, it's like it's not even that's not even on their mind. And I also want to say one thing about, like, being a police officer right now must be one of the hardest things for your mental health, and just for imagine I would not be able to do that right now. I would not be able to put on that uniform and go to work knowing that my life is at danger right now because people are going to react to this. And people have, and so you see about this, and it's like I don't want to keep droning on about it, but it just like it's so dark that, like, both sides, like, it's such a conflicting, there's no right answer. Like, there's so much anxiety and agitation every time you pull somebody over. You are worried for your life. You don't know this person, but then once you do know that this person's no longer a threat, it is your imperative to protect this individual. This is now like you're serving this person. You're not. Anyways, it's just it's all bad, man. And I really do hope that I don't know. I don't have any answers. I really do hope that some of those things we listed off, among many other great ideas, are actually implemented. I just think right now there's a big disorganization problem. There's a lot of voices, and it's very hard to find a signal through the noise. I mean, dude, in the last, like, 2 hours before this podcast, I'm looking at all this, like, I'm going through Twitter or Instagram, and I'm seeing, like, should I post this black box or not? I don't even, some people are saying don't post it. It's like, this is not the right thing to be doing right now. We need to get information out. Other people are like, we got to drown out all the bad information. Some people are like, donate to this. Some people are donate to that. It's like, bro, like, there's no, like, central authority to know how to deal with something like this. It's just Wild West.
I mean, yeah, the lack of organization is an issue. You know, that's the biggest problem. And also, the reason I reposted that thing with the actual list, because it was an actual list of actionable steps that we can take. You know what I mean? That lawmakers can take, that people in power can take, and that's what we need more of. You know, I go back and forth with people that are violently rioting and looting and this and that, and they talk about this is the only way we get people to listen. Well, my argument is, okay, even if that is true, I don't agree with it, but even if, let's say you're right, once we have their attention, now we have the attention of the world. What do we want now? Now it's the time to say, this is what we want, and this is when we expect it, and you need to implement this, you know. And that's sort of where I think it's falling short, unfortunately. And you know, I'm hoping that there are some things happening behind the scenes that we don't know about. But I think, you know, if attention is what you wanted when it comes to the rioting and the looting, we have it now. So now we need to actually say, this is what we need to happen. We need to have a list of demands to actually try and, you know, repair this situation, because just continuing to burn down our cities, we're going to be left with no city to go back to, you know, and that's terrible to think of.
Yeah, man, it's really just tough. I don't know how this is gonna play out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
praying for you guys. I hope it gets solved, and
Yeah,
you
same
know,
here, man.
that's such a, I mean, it sounds so lazy to say, but it's like I don't have, I don't know, man. No one
Yeah,
knows well, and
yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. It's like, I don't know, man. And a lot of people are being pressured into, taking a stance online and putting
Mm-hmm.
things online, and not even really fully sure like what it really means. And you know, to blindly support rioting and looting
Mm-hmm.
blindly, like without even
Mm-hmm.
looking at who is doing it and for what purpose, like that's not right either, man. Like these
Yeah.
are, look at who you're damaging. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
these small businesses that are already in a really, really tough spot, about to close their doors because of COVID. Now you hit them with this. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I don't have the answers, but we've been talking about this for a little while, man. I've had you on for over an hour now. I've been loving this chat. It's really nice to have an open
Absolutely.
dialogue with somebody about all this stuff, and I'll definitely have you back on one day, man, and we'll definitely
Yeah, for sure.
continue this kind of chat, and hopefully it can be a little bit more optimistic and a little bit more positive and
Yeah.
hopeful. But
Yeah.
that's just
That'd
where
be
we're
great.
at. That's just where we're at today, man. And I really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Before I let you go, I usually
Mm-hmm.
do a lightning round of
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 questions, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll just do that, and then we'll wrap it up, man.
Cool.
So if you could interview one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
If I could interview one person, dead or alive, who would it be? Oh man, my dream interview. I guess Will Smith, man. I'm gonna just say that one. That's an easy go-to. You know, if I can get a lot of that interview.
Nice, man. That would level you up. Like,
Oh yeah.
imagine just having a sit down with Will Smith. Like for me,
Oh
like
man, that.
yeah, for me that'd be like like Jay-Z or Drake or someone like
Yeah. Yeah.
one of these moguls. Just sit down and just pick their brain, man. Um.
Absolutely.
Okay, so number 2 is like, what advice would you give to 21-year-old Dramos?
You have time. You know, don't feel like the pressure to make something happen right now. You know, you have time to experiment, and take the risks. Don't listen to anybody that's telling you to, now's the time to grow up or slow down. Like, no, now's the time to take every internship. It's the time to risk, moving somewhere, trying something new, being broke for a while. Like, all that stuff is okay, because that leads to you figuring it out.
Taste all the things, and
Hmm.
move on your own path, man. I love it.
Absolutely.
Question 3, and this one I kind of just threw in there because I believe you're a Bucks fan. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
If they have a season, if they have an NFL season, which I don't
Mm,
see them not doing, but you never know.
yeah.
Would you go down and see Tom Brady ball with the Bucks?
Oh hell yeah, 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 definitely. I'm definitely gonna get a flight out there for sure to catch that for sure, 100%.
Awesome, man. Uh, as you can tell, I'm a bit of a Patriots fan, so
Yeah, no,
I'm still recovering, bro.
no, man. I don't know what you guys are gonna do, man. Let's see what happens.
We'll see what happens, brother. Last and final question: how do you
Yeah.
want to be remembered?
Mm. Man, how do I want to be remembered? I want to be remembered as somebody who, put on for a lot of people, who was the voice for people who felt like they didn't have one, and who challenged his community to be better, to do better, you know. And I hope that is kind of my legacy when it comes to everything, that I push my people to be better. I push everybody to help one another out, and realize, that you're not in competition with one another. You can lend a helping hand to people. You can lift other people up, and help them on the road to success. So that's kind of what I would hope, that I just keep believing and passing on that message to other people.
Well, I'm confident you'll definitely leave that legacy, bro, especially with the
Thank you, man.
different things you're doing, man. I look up to you, bro. I really appreciate you
bro.
coming on. Right before we get off, shout out all your social media and wherever people can find you and your stuff.
Yeah, at DJ Dramos across the board on social media. And yeah, I mean, I do my First Generation Talks podcast. You can find that wherever you find podcasts. And yeah, whatever. I have a weekly radio show if you're more into like the Latin dance space, called Con Fuego, that airs on Dash Radio every Wednesday. So, but all, just head to DJ Dramos. You'll find all the random stuff I'm working on.
Love it. Appreciate you, brother. Have a good one and stay safe out here. And for those listening, just remember, it's not that deep. Thanks, bro.
Appreciate you, brother.